It was a chilly evening in the capital. The official residence glowed beneath the night sky, but inside the main office, the head of state sat quietly, lost in thought. To the outside world, he was the most powerful figure in the land. Yet deep within, he carried a heaviness that no title could lift. His advisors, cabinet members, and senior officials surrounded him every day. But the leader had begun to notice something disturbing. Many of them weren't truly working for the people. Some were busy polishing their images for the media. Others were preoccupied with power, influence, or their next political move. Sincere conversations about the citizens, the ordinary men and women who had placed their trust in the state's institutions, were rare. This realization haunted him. He wanted people around him who carried honesty, vision, and selflessness in their hearts. Instead, he saw personal ambition, competition, and greed. The thought kept him awake at night. One afternoon, tired of the endless noise of official life, the head of state decided to step outside the residence for some fresh air. With a small security detail, he walked toward a quiet stretch of the national park. It was late autumn. Golden leaves blanketed the ground, and the air carried both a chill and a strange calm. As he wandered deeper into the trees, away from the carved stone and ceremonial flags, his eyes fell on a lone figure. A man sat cross-legged on the grass, speaking softly to himself. His clothes were plain, his hair unkempt, and yet there was a peculiar light in his eyes. The security detail tensed. "Sir, we should move you away," one of them whispered. But the leader raised his hand, signaling them to stay back. Something about this man intrigued him. He walked closer, then spoke in a calm voice. "Hello. Are you all right? You seem to be talking to yourself. Some people might even think you're crazy." The man slowly lifted his head, a faint smile on his lips. "Crazy?" he said. "I am not crazy. Real madness lies with those who drown in power and forget the people they are meant to serve. I only wish this place could change, that empty fields turn into buildings of justice, and that I may stand to protect them." The leader paused. These weren't the ramblings of a lunatic. There was depth, conviction, and an unsettling clarity in those words. An agent leaned in, cautious. "Sir, he looks unstable. Maybe we should leave." But the head of state ignored the warning. He kept watching the man, feeling that this meeting might be more than chance. In the quiet of the park, under falling leaves, the powerful man made a small decision. He would not walk away. He would learn what this stranger had to say. The next day, the leader couldn't shake the image of the man in the park. His words echoed in his mind like a whisper he couldn't silence. Real madness lies with those who drown in power and forget the people they are, meant to serve. Curiosity turned into restlessness. Against his advisor's objections, the leader ordered that the man be brought to the state residence. When the stranger entered the great hall, officials sneered quietly. His plain clothes stood out sharply against the polished suits and uniforms of power. But the leader welcomed him with respect, motioning for him to sit close. "What is your name?" the leader asked. The man smiled faintly. "Names are for those who wish to be remembered. I am just a servant of truth." The officials exchanged irritated glances. To them this was nonsense, but the leader leaned forward, fascinated. "Then tell me, servant of truth, what do you see when you look at this state?" The hall grew quiet. Everyone waited to hear how the stranger would embarrass himself. But instead, his voice rang clear. "I see a state built on the dreams of the people. Yet those dreams are fading. Too many here serve not the citizens, but themselves. They polish their words for the public, but stain their hands in secret. If this continues, the house of power will crumble, not from enemies outside, but from greed within." The words struck like a hammer. The leader's chest tightened. For years he had sensed the same thing, but never dared to say it aloud. And now here it was, spoken boldly by a man everyone called mad. The officials shifted uncomfortably, their faces flushed with anger. One advisor muttered, "This is outrageous, sir. You cannot let this man insult the foundation of our government." But the leader silenced him with a raised hand. "No," he said softly. "I want to hear more." The stranger continued, his tone steady, almost prophetic. "Power is like fire. In the right hands, it gives warmth and light. But in selfish hands, it burns everything. A true leader is not the one who holds fire for himself, but the one who protects the people from being consumed by it. The hall fell silent again. For the first time in years, the leader felt something stir inside him. Not the weight of office, not the exhaustion of politics, but a spark of hope. He stood, his voice firm. From this day forward, this man will remain close to me. He will speak freely in my presence. Where others bring me flattery, he will bring me truth. Gasps filled the chamber. Advisors whispered in panic. How could the leader trust this unknown vagabond over them? But the leader's decision was final. In the halls of power, a storm was beginning to form. Days turned into weeks. The stranger now sat close to the leader during meetings. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his words carried weight that no polished report or lengthy speech could match. The people of the state began to notice changes. Policies shifted toward fairness. Resources once hoarded by a few were redirected to those in need. Ordinary citizens cheered their leader with new hope. But within the chambers of power, the air grew darker. The advisors, ministers, and officials who had long enjoyed unchecked influence now felt cornered. Their whispered conversations in marble corridors carried a single theme: jealousy. "He is nothing," one advisor hissed. "A drifter with no education, no record, no family of influence. Yet the leader listens to him as if his words are sacred," another replied bitterly. "What happens when the people start seeing him as the true voice of the state? Where does that leave us?" One minister, older and more calculating than the rest, leaned forward. "Do not be fooled. This man is dangerous. If he remains by the leader's side, our days of comfort will end. He must be removed." But the others hesitated. "How? The leader trusts him blindly. Any move against him may expose us." The elder minister's lips curled into a cold smile. "Then we do not move directly. We guide him, push him, let him destroy himself." That night, the plan was born. The very next morning, a group of officials approached the stranger. They bowed respectfully, masking their contempt with smiles. "Brother," one said sweetly, "we know you have the leader's trust. But the rules of our halls are complicated. If you do not follow them, you could be punished severely. We only wish to protect you." The stranger tilted his head, puzzled. "Punished? I have no desire to break rules. What must I do?" They exchanged quick glances, suppressing grins. The trap was working. One stepped closer, lowering his voice. "In this chamber, tradition says the leader must be awakened to begin the session. It is an honor. Tomorrow, when he takes his seat, you should strike his shoulder firmly. It will please him, and you will rise higher in his eyes." The stranger blinked in surprise. "Strike the leader? Wouldn't that be disrespectful?" Another official patted his arm. "Not at all. It is a sacred ritual. Only the most trusted may do it. Think of the glory." Naive, simple-hearted, and eager to prove himself, the stranger nodded slowly. "Very well. If it pleases the leader, I shall do it." The officials left, their laughter echoing in hidden corners. By morning, the hall of power was filled with tension. Advisors smirked behind their hands, waiting for the moment of the stranger's downfall. The leader entered and took his seat. The chamber fell silent. And then, the stranger walked forward, lifted his hand, and struck the leader's shoulder with a sharp slap. Gasps erupted. The leader's crown tumbled to the floor, rolling across the polished stone. The officials leaned forward eagerly, waiting for. The hall buzzed with shock. Officials who had prayed for the stranger's humiliation now watched in disbelief as the leader embraced him warmly. "This man," the leader announced in a firm voice that carried through the chamber, "is no fool. He is the reason I stand alive before you. Where others bring me polished lies, he has brought me truth, and now even my life." The stranger stood awkwardly, unsure how to respond. He had only followed the official's suggestion, believing it would honor the leader. Yet fate had turned their trick into a miracle. The leader raised his hand toward him. "From this day, he shall not only sit beside me, but also serve as a protector of this state. His courage has earned him that right." Applause filled the hall, but it was forced, bitter. Behind every clap hid clenched jaws and burning jealousy. The minister's plan had backfired, and the man they despised was now stronger than ever. Outside the palace, news spread like fire. The people rejoiced, calling the stranger a hero chosen by destiny. Songs were sung in the marketplaces about the man who saved the leader with nothing but a slap. Inside, however, the officials plotted again. "This cannot go on," one muttered in the shadows. "Every attempt we make only raises him higher." If this continues, the people will see him as greater than us all. Another replied bitterly, then we must think bigger. If small tricks fail, we must set a stage where even he cannot survive. And so, another scheme was woven. The next morning, they returned to the stranger, faces masked with false respect. Brother, one began softly, yesterday you proved your loyalty, but do you wish to rise even higher? To share not just the leader's trust, but his authority? The stranger blinked. Authority? I seek nothing but to serve. Exactly, they said eagerly. True service deserves reward. Tomorrow, when the leader sits upon his throne, pull it gently away at the last moment. It is a ritual of testing. If you do it, the leader will see your bravery and give you half the kingdom to govern. The stranger frowned. Pull his throne away? That seems dangerous. Not at all. They reassured him quickly. It will only prove your loyalty. Imagine, half the kingdom under your command. Do this and you will rise above all. Confused but trusting, the stranger agreed. The next day, the chamber filled again. Officials hid their smirks, waiting for disaster. As the leader approached his throne, the stranger stepped behind it just as instructed. At the very moment the leader began to sit, he yanked the chair back. Gasps echoed through the hall. But instead of falling, the leader stumbled, then caught himself, steadying with surprising grace. Turning, he saw the throne's legs splintered. Had he sat fully, it would have broken beneath him, sending him crashing to the floor and perhaps to serious injury. The leader's eyes widened. Then they softened with gratitude. The hall buzzed with shock. Officials who had prayed for the stranger's humiliation now watched in disbelief as the leader embraced him warmly. This man, the leader, announced in a firm voice that carried through the chamber, is no fool. He is the reason I stand alive before you. Where others bring me polished lies, he has brought me truth, and now even my life. The stranger frowned. Pull his throne away? That seems dangerous. Not at all. They reassured him quickly. It will only prove your loyalty. Imagine, half the kingdom under your command. Do this and you will rise above all. Confused but trusting, the stranger agreed. The next day, the chamber filled again. Officials hid their smirks, waiting for disaster. As the leader approached his throne, the stranger stepped behind it just as instructed. At the very moment the leader began to sit, he yanked the chair back. Gasps echoed through the hall. But instead of falling, the leader stumbled, then caught himself, steadying with surprising grace. Turning, he saw the throne's legs splintered. Had he sat fully, it would have broken beneath him, sending him crashing to the floor and perhaps to serious injury. The leader's eyes widened. Then they softened with gratitude. You have saved me again, he declared. Twice now you have risked misunderstanding, even punishment only to protect me. He turned to the assembly. This man shall no longer be called fool. From this day he is general of our forces, the shield of this state. The chamber fell silent. The officials who had plotted his fall could only stare in horror. Their traps had become ladders, lifting the stranger higher each time, and deep inside their hearts envy burned hotter than ever. The stranger stood awkwardly, unsure how to respond. He had only followed the official's suggestion, believing it would honor the leader. Yet fate had turned their trick into a miracle. The leader raised his hand toward him. From this day, he shall not only sit beside me, but also serve as a protector of this state. His courage has earned him that right. Applause filled the hall, but it was forced, bitter. Behind every clap hid clenched jaws and burning jealousy. The minister's plan had backfired, and the man they despised was now stronger than ever. Outside the palace, news spread like fire. The people rejoiced, calling the stranger a hero chosen by destiny. Songs were sung in the marketplaces about the man who saved the leader with nothing but a slap. Inside, however, the officials plotted again. This cannot go on, one muttered in the shadows. Every attempt we make only raises him higher. If this continues, the people will see him as greater than us all. Another replied bitterly, then we must think bigger. If small tricks fail, we must set a stage where even he cannot survive. And so, another scheme was woven. The next morning, they returned to the stranger, faces masked with false respect. Brother, one began softly, yesterday you proved your loyalty, but do you wish to rise even higher? To share not just the leader's trust, but his authority? The stranger blinked. Authority? I seek nothing but to serve. Exactly, they said eagerly. True service deserves reward. Tomorrow, when the leader sits upon his throne, pull it gently away at the last moment. It is a ritual of testing. If you do it, the leader will see your bravery and give you half the kingdom to govern. The ceremony that followed was unlike anything the stranger had ever witnessed. Drums echoed through the marble corridors, banners were raised high, and the leader himself placed a medal on the stranger's chest. From today, he proclaimed, you are no longer a wanderer. You are general of this state, protector of its people, and guardian of its honor. The hall erupted in applause. Courtiers bowed, soldiers saluted, and even the common people pressed against the palace gates, cheering the man they now called Destiny's Child. The stranger stood humbly, his eyes lowered. He had never desired rank or power. His only wish had been to live truthfully. Yet here he was, raised higher than he had ever imagined. But not everyone celebrated. Behind jeweled curtains, the ministers whispered, he has taken everything. Our influence, our respect, the leader's trust. He has made us invisible in our own court. If we do not destroy him now, he will rule us all. Their envy grew darker, more poisonous. Meanwhile, as general, the stranger began his duty with sincerity. He visited the training grounds, speaking kindly to young soldiers. He walked through villages without guards, listening to the poor and the forgotten. Wherever he went, people felt hope awaken in their hearts. Soon, stories spread far beyond the capital. Mothers blessed his name, farmers praised his fairness, and children ran to greet him. The people whispered, if ever the leader should fall, this man should be our protector. The ministers heard these whispers, and their jealousy deepened into fear. One night, as moonlight spilled over the city's domes, they gathered in secret. This cannot go on, one hissed. He is no longer just a general. He is becoming the people's savior. If we allow this, even the leader may one day hand him the throne. Another leaned forward, eyes sharp as blades. Then let us not wait. If traps have lifted him, then we must weave a net he cannot escape. Something so impossible it will lead him to certain ruin. Silence fell. Every face in the chamber gleamed with malice. And then one whispered the plan, so cruel, so cunning that even the shadows seemed to shiver. The scheme was simple. To send the stranger on a mission no man could survive. The very next day they approached him with smiles. General, they said sweetly, there is a task that only a man of your courage can perform. Beyond the mountains lies a valley, filled with creatures of death. No one has ever returned from there. The leader wishes to know its secret. Will you go? The stranger's eyes flickered with doubt. But he remembered his promise, to serve honestly, without question. If it is my duty, he replied calmly, then I will go. The ministers bowed, hiding their sinister joy. At last they thought the fool will meet his end. But destiny had a different plan. The journey began at dawn. The stranger, now general, mounted a horse and rode out from the capital's gates. A small group of soldiers followed at first. But as the mountains drew near, they grew afraid and turned back. General, no one returns from that valley, one of them pleaded. Please do not go alone. The stranger only smiled gently. If truth demands my life, then let it be so. But I will not run from duty. And so he entered the valley alone. The place was unlike any land he had ever seen. The sky above seemed darker. The wind carried strange cries, and the earth smelled of ash and blood. Jagged rocks rose like broken teeth, and in the shadows lurked beasts with glowing eyes. As he walked deeper, the creatures emerged, wolves with fangs like knives, serpents thick as tree trunks, and birds with wings sharp as blades. They circled him, hungry and merciless. The stranger reached for his sword, but then paused. In his heart, he remembered the leader's words, "Your truth is your strength." Closing his eyes, he whispered, "If I must fight, let it not be with hate, but with courage." The beasts lunged. He swung his blade, not with fury, but with calm precision. One by one they fell, until the valley shook with their cries. Hours passed. His body ached. Blood ran from his arm, yet he pressed forward. At the valley's heart, he found a cavern glowing with strange light. Inside lay a fountain of crystal water, untouched by time. The stranger knelt, drinking deeply. The wounds on his body healed at once, and strength filled his spirit. He realized this was no cursed place. It was a trial, a forge for the brave. When he returned, carrying a vial of the fountain's water, the city erupted with wonder. The leader embraced him once again. "You have conquered what no man dared face. You bring not only victory but life itself." The people celebrated for days, singing his name in the streets. The fountain's water was said to cure sickness, and soon it became a blessing for the entire land. But in the council chamber, the ministers sat in silence, their faces pale. This was meant to kill him," one muttered. "Instead, it has made him a legend," another whispered. Their hearts burned with rage. And so they vowed, if danger could not destroy him, then betrayal would. The valley's water had changed everything. The people called it the gift of heaven, and the stranger became more beloved than ever. Farmers lined the roads to see him. Mothers lifted their children for his blessing, and soldiers swore their loyalty not just to the leader, but to him. The leader himself often said, "This man is my right hand, my protector, and my brother in spirit." These words, spoken before the entire court, pierced the ministers like arrows. Their pride crumbled, their influence faded, and their envy burned like wildfire. One night, under the cover of silence, they gathered again. "We have failed too many times," one whispered. "Yes," another replied bitterly. "Every trap has become a crown upon his head." "Then there is only one path left," a third said coldly. "If danger cannot kill him, then we must kill him with our own hands." The chamber fell silent. The thought hung in the air like poison. "But how?" one asked. "He is always with the leader, always surrounded by guards. To strike at him openly would be to invite death upon ourselves." Then the oldest minister leaned forward, his eyes glinting. "We shall not strike him with swords. We shall strike him with whispers." The others looked at him puzzled. He explained, "The leader loves him, but he also fears betrayal. What if we plant a seed of doubt in his heart? A rumor so carefully crafted that the leader will turn against him himself?" The ministers exchanged dark smiles. At last, a plan that required no failed tricks, no impossible tasks, only lies. The very next day, the whispers began. In the corridors of power, servants murmured, "Have you seen how the general is welcomed?" Almost as though he were king himself. In the markets, disguised men said, "Strange, is it not? The people shout his name louder than the leaders." In the barracks, soldiers were told, "Do you not see? His army follows him, not the throne." The rumor spread like smoke, invisible yet choking. Finally, it reached the ears of the leader himself. At first, he laughed it off. "My general is the most loyal man alive. He would never betray me." But at night, alone in his chambers, the whispers returned to his mind. "What if it is true? What if the man I trust most is the one who seeks my throne?" The leader's heart grew heavy, torn between love and doubt. And the ministers, watching from the shadows, knew their poison was working. For the first time, the bond between the leader and the stranger began to crack. The leader had always trusted the general with his life. Yet lately, sleep no longer came easily. In the quiet of the night, every cheer from the streets sounded like betrayal. Every salute from soldiers seemed like secret allegiance. One evening, he summoned his advisers. The ministers arrived, their faces heavy with false concern. "My heart is troubled," the leader confessed. "Tell me truthfully, what do the people say of my general?" They bowed low, their voices dripping with venomous sweetness. "Great leader, forgive us, but we cannot hide what is spoken in the streets. The people say the general is not just loyal, they say he is destined for the throne." The leader's eyes widened. "The throne?" "Yes," they continued, exchanging sly glances. "They call him the savior of the state, the chosen protector. Some even whisper, 'May we be forgiven, that he would make a greater ruler than you.'" The words struck the leader like thunder. For a moment his faith wavered. He remembered the fountain, the valley, the cheers of the people, cheers louder for the general than for himself. "No," he muttered, shaking his head. "He is loyal. He has saved me more than once." But the ministers pressed on. "Loyalty can change, my lord. Today he saves you, but tomorrow, with the army and the people behind him, what choice will you have if he decides to sit on your throne?" Their words coiled like serpents around his heart. Doubt grew stronger. That night, unable to rest, the leader walked alone through the palace corridors. He passed guards who straightened eagerly at the sight of him, but he noticed something. Their eyes shone brighter when the general's name was mentioned. He heard two servants whispering in the garden. Have you seen the general? He is like a king already. Hush! If the leader hears— What of it? Everyone says so. The leader froze in the shadows, his chest tightening. By the time dawn came, doubt had become fear. And fear in the heart of a ruler is more dangerous than any sword. The next day, the leader summoned the general. "My brother," he said with forced calm, "I hear troubling things. People say your name more than mine. They call you their savior. Tell me truthfully, do you seek my throne?" The general, shocked, dropped to his knees. "My lord, never. I live only to serve you. My loyalty has not wavered, not even in thought. If I wanted a throne, I would have left you in danger long ago. But I did not. I saved you twice." The leader looked at him, torn between memory and doubt. But in the corner of the chamber, the ministers bowed deeply, hiding their smirks. Their plan was working. For days after that meeting, the leader's heart remained restless. The general's words had been filled with sincerity, yet the poison of doubt still lingered. Every time the people shouted the general's name in the streets, the leader felt his chest tighten. Every time the soldiers saluted him with too much pride, suspicion sharpened like a blade. The ministers knew this. They watched closely, waiting for the right moment to strike. One evening, they entered the council chamber with grim faces. "My lord," they said, bowing low, "forgive us, but we bring terrible news." The leader frowned. "What is it?" They hesitated, pretending to struggle with their words. "A letter, my lord. A letter from the general." "To your enemies across the border." The leader's eyes widened. "Impossible! Show me!" They presented a parchment covered in writing. The seal was smeared, the ink still fresh. The leader's hands trembled as he read. Promises of loyalty to the rival kingdom. Secret plans to overthrow the throne. Even an oath to rule in the leader's place. The leader's face drained of color. "No, this cannot be." "My lord," one minister whispered, "we too were shocked. But the evidence is clear. Why else would the people love him so? Why else would he gather such power?" The leader's chest heaved with rage. Yet somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered, "Could this be a trick? Could they be lying?" But fear silenced that voice. The next morning, when the general entered the chamber, expecting another day of duty, he found soldiers surrounding him. "My lord?" he asked, confused. The leader rose, his eyes cold. "Do not call me that, traitor. I trusted you more than my own blood, and you sold me to my enemies." The general froze. "What, never? My life is yours. I would never betray you." The leader hurled the letter at his feet. "Then explain this." The general bent, reading the words, his face twisting in shock. "This is not mine. I never wrote this." The ministers stepped forward solemnly. "Deny it if you wish, but the evidence cannot be erased." The chamber rang with silence. The leader's heart wavered, but the whispers of doubt and the sight of the letter weighed heavier. With a trembling voice, he gave the order. "Take him away. From this day he is stripped of his title, his honor, and his command. Let him be imprisoned until I decide his fate." The soldiers, once loyal to the general, hesitated. But the leader's glare left no choice. They bound him in chains and dragged him through the halls. As the doors closed behind him, the ministers exchanged secret smiles. At last, their greatest enemy had fallen. But destiny was not finished with him yet. The prison was dark, damp, and stinking of rot. The general, once the hero of the people, now sat in chains upon the cold stone floor. His uniform was torn away, his sword taken, and the whispers of soldiers echoed beyond the iron bars. "Is it true? Did he really betray the leader? They say he sold secrets to the enemy." "I cannot believe it." "He was our savior." The general bowed his head, his heart heavy. He had fought with truth, lived with loyalty. And yet here he was, branded a traitor. For the first time, a shadow of despair touched his spirit. Is this the price of honesty? To be crushed by lies? But then he remembered the fountain's water, the voice of the leader when he had once called him brother, the faces of the people who had cheered for him. And slowly he straightened his back. "No," he whispered to himself. "Truth cannot be chained. Lies may win for a moment, but not forever." Meanwhile, outside the prison, the state stirred with unease. The people could not accept the news. Crowds gathered in the streets shouting, "Free the general! He is innocent." Mothers who had seen their children healed by the fountain's water raised their voices in protest. Soldiers who had trained under him whispered rebelliously in the barracks. Farmers cursed the ministers, saying They fear his greatness, so they cast him into the shadows. The leader heard these cries from his palace window. His heart wavered again. Could it be that he had been deceived? Not by the general, but by those closest to him? But the ministers pressed harder. Do not listen to the mob, my lord. They are blinded by his false kindness. Justice must be firm. If you hesitate, rebellion will spread. Their words struck like daggers, pushing the leader further into doubt and anger. Days passed. The general sat in darkness, surviving on scraps of bread and water. Yet his spirit refused to break. Each night he prayed, "Let truth shine, even if I never see the light again." And destiny listened. For one night a guard approached his cell. His face was pale, his hands trembling. "My general," he whispered urgently. Glancing over his shoulder, "I know you are innocent. I was there when the ministers forged the letter. I saw them pressing the seal with their own hands." The general's eyes blazed. "Then why do you remain silent?" "Because if I speak, they will kill me. But I cannot watch this lie destroy you." "I will find a way." Somehow the truth must reach the leader. The general clasped his hand through the bars. "Do what you can. I need no crown, no throne, only that the truth be known." The guard nodded, slipping back into the shadows. And so hope stirred again in the darkness. But the ministers, sensing the unrest, prepared a far deadlier plan, one that would end the general's life before truth could rise. The ministers gathered in a secret chamber, their faces pale yet burning with fury. "Chains did not silence him," one hissed. "The people still cry his name," another added. "If the leader learns the truth, all will be lost." A chilling silence filled the room before the oldest minister spoke, his voice like a blade. "Then we must end it. No more tricks, no more whispers. The general must die." The others nodded grimly. But one asked, "If we kill him in the prison, suspicion may fall on us." The leader already hesitates. The elder smiled cruelly. "Then let us cloak his death in justice. We shall convince the leader to order his execution. Once his head falls by the state's own blade, no man can question it." And so the plan began. The next morning, the ministers went before the leader, their robes torn, their faces filled with fake grief. "My lord," they cried, "darkness spreads. Even from the prison, the traitor stirs rebellion. His followers conspire in the streets. The people speak of freeing him by force." The leader's hands tightened on the arm of his chair. "I have heard these voices, but are they truly his doing?" "Yes," the ministers declared. "We have proof, messages smuggled from his cell, orders to his allies to rise against you. If he lives another day, the state itself may burn." The leader's heart thundered. "Execution? But he has served me with loyalty for so long." The ministers pressed harder. "Mercy for a traitor is cruelty to the throne." "End him now, and you will save your people. Delay, and you will lose everything." The leader closed his eyes, torn between memory and fear. He recalled the general's devotion, his sacrifices, his courage in the valley. But the minister's words drummed louder. "Traitor! Rebellion! Throne in danger." At last, with a heavy voice, he said, "Prepare the gallows." The ministers bowed, their smiles hidden. Their victory was almost complete. But outside the palace, the guard who had witnessed the forgery hurried through the night. He carried with him the truth, the only weapon that could yet save the general's life. And fate, ever watchful, was not finished weaving its deceit. The gallows were raised in the great square, ropes swaying in the cold wind. Crowds gathered, their voices hushed. Whispers ran through them like wildfire. "The general is to die!" The man who once saved us all. Inside the palace, the ministers rejoiced in secret, their scheme nearly complete. The leader, however, sat in silence, his heart burdened with doubt. At dawn, soldiers led the general, shackled but proud, to the scaffold. His eyes, calm and fearless, searched the sea of faces. He saw sorrow, anger, love, but no hatred. Just as the executioner raised his hand, a voice pierced the air. "Stop!" All heads turned. A young guard pushed his way through the crowd, clutching a sealed scroll. He fell to his knees before the leader. "My lord," he gasped, "I have proof. The ministers deceived you. These letters, these so-called orders of rebellion, were forged by their own hands. I saw it with my eyes." The square erupted in cries. The leader snatched the scroll, broke the seal, and read. His face darkened with every word. At last he rose, his voice thundering across the square. Betrayers! You called yourselves guardians of the state, yet you wove lies to destroy the truest man among us. The ministers trembled, their knees buckling. Mercy, my lord! But mercy was denied. The people surged forward, seizing them, their years of deceit laid bare. The leader turned to the general. His voice cracked with shame. I doubted you, though you never doubted me. You carried my crown when I could not, and I repaid you with chains. Forgive me if you can. The general bowed his head. I sought no throne, only truth. And truth has prevailed, not by my strength, but by the hand of destiny. The leader lifted him high before the people. From this day, he shall not be called madman nor traitor, but guardian of the state, protector of our land, a man of honor. The crowd roared with joy. Bells rang, drums thundered, and hope spread like fire through the city. As for the general, he sat quietly in the hall of justice, the weight of glory upon his shoulders. He knew well the lesson hidden in his journey. Power may be won by tricks, but it is truth that endures. Envy may plot, but destiny belongs only to the Almighty. And he who trusts in righteousness walks with victory, even through chains. Thus ended the tale of the man once called mad, whose wisdom saved a state, whose courage silenced lies, and whose name lived far beyond the envy of men.